generations of people learned to swim here and learned to compete. And they went from local to regional to national competitions and indeed international competitions over the years. But unfortunately the River Corrib is the same body of water in which people from time to time choose to end their lives each year. So it really is most appropriate that Galway Swimming Club has partnered with the 3 T's, Turn the Tide of Suicide, to hold the swim on the longest day. Now we hold it on the longest day, but the 22nd of June, which is the nearest Saturday to the longest day, and that's the day it will be held on. And really it's been done to raise awareness, raise funds to support the charity in its work. There are 2 swims on actually on the day, and we have the video going here in the background. You'll see the course. There is a 2.5k swim that starts in Dangan, and there's a 4k swim that starts in Glenlow. And I've mentioned the 2 supporters, John Lally and Michael Heskin, for that already. I'd like to thank the members of the rowing club, and the president of Rowing Ireland is here, Eamon Coakley, an old colleague of mine, and all of the clubs here on the river who are going to cooperate with us most graciously cooperating with us and giving us water, space and time and support for the event. It really will be appreciated on the day.
My father-in-law committed suicide, so he was never found. He went in the water in Dublin, and so I've been very involved in mental health for a number of years, and Hildegard has been a great supporter for this as well, Hildegard. And I know how hard it is when somebody goes into the water and is not found. So it is the most dangerous, thing, but it can be the most enjoyable item as well anyway. So when you think of what we have in Saltillam with the beautiful river that we have here, how beautiful it is, but it is unfortunately something that we have to look at. But that's why it was so important for me to be here first of all tonight, because I really want to say a big thank you for putting on this event and what you're trying to do, because the more groups that are out there and the more we start talking about river safety, water safety, and also mental health, and the fact that we have the sports stars here as well, and icons, heroes to so many young people, and you have such a strong voice, from what you do as well, that you're showing the young men especially, that it's okay to go out there and talk sometimes for it. Seriously, we need to talk about mental health, and that's why Noel, I really want to say thank you personally, but also on behalf of the city for what you've done and set up. It's an amazing organisation. We need to be talking about this more, and it's not just become a fad, right, where we'll be pretending we're talking about it. We need to really look at it and start investing money in it, because if you break an arm, you go to the doctor. If you're not feeling well, you should be going to the doctor, or at least getting a bit of help about that in the first place. So the money that's been raised today from this event, hopefully down in the future, will go towards your organisation as well. So congratulations, and I wish everybody the very best of luck. Thank you.
We got together earlier in the year, and we decided that we'd try and do something to make a difference. And as Eamon said, swimming in Galway was actually founded on this river, and the first lessons were taught on this river. And really, I suppose in more recent years, it's become a place where people unfortunately are taking their lives. So we felt that it would be a fantastic opportunity to partner with the 3 T's, Turning the Tide of Suicide, which obviously has water connotations in terms of, we've set out to with a 3-year plan to have a really international event. We'll try and get the first year executed fairly well this year. I'd like to thank particularly Jerry Kilcommons from Medtronic, John Power from Aerogen, and Kieran Quilty from Facebook, who are all coming behind us as corporate sponsors to try and enable this event. Finally, as part of figuring out how we were going to try and really click this event, we started off with the notions of writing to Michael Phelps to see if he'd come over and swim in it, and I had the fortune of having a chat with a friend of mine, Ollie Daniels, who's obviously himself a great supporter of soccer in Galway. But one of his board members is a guy called Tim Hinchy, who's the CEO and president of USA Swimming. And he hooked me up with Tim, and I'm delighted to announce tonight that Tim is coming over with 2 US Olympic swimmers who are actually going to swim the event. One is a guy called Davis Tarwater, who he won gold with the USA swim team in the Olympics in London in 2012, and he's represented the USA in many long course championships and holds various records. And the second guy is a legend in the States. He's a 3-time Olympian. He swam in Athens, Beijing and London. He was captain of the US Olympic team in 2012. Peter van der Kay, he's coming to swim it as well. He's, I think, 3 or 4 gold medals and 2 or 3 silver medals. So it's going to be great to have Olympic gold medals floating around Galway for the weekend. We're hoping that it'll create a great atmosphere. We're going to have I suppose, entertainment and that evening in the boat club. So we're looking forward to the event. Really, I suppose this kind of a and our very own Olympian Dara Sharkey, exactly. Who's been telling me he's going to beat Peter van der Kay, but Dara's doing the 2.5K and Peter's doing the 4K. So anyway, thanks again to everybody for coming out, particularly again for the sports stars, because really, you know, the whole, and I know Noel will probably talk a bit more about it, but in terms of depression and suicide, it's about education, and it's about educating our younger people. And I think it's those younger people that look up particularly to the sports stars, so it's great to have you on board, so thanks guys.
It's Mayor Neil, thank you for coming, and goodbye.
I heard the speech you're in for a long one.
Hildegard, thank you so much for your time, and of course the sports stars. It's sometimes difficult to put into words what an event like this can mean, in the sense that every day in some part of Ireland we are now experiencing a circumstance whereby 2 people are likely to take their own life. So that over the actual year, where we talk about maybe 500 to sometimes as many as 700 people are dying by suicide. And unfortunately, we still see directly that suicide is a second-class death. People don't actually accept that the person who dies by suicide probably in most instances feel that they're either doing their friends or their family a favour. They believe that society has discarded them, and they feel to a large extent that there is no support available to them. Now, that's not true. There are fantastic supports, but it's a patchwork quilt. So you could end up in a situation whereby you're really in difficulty. You have suicide ideation, you go to your GP, he sends you to the A&E, and nobody can help you. They send you away, and you then decide, well, I have the rope in the boot of the car, or I have the tablets at home, and these are real events. And the best way I can probably describe it, if somebody dies, once a friend of mine described it, that you put your hand in a bucket of water, and the hole that's left behind, this is how much you're normally missed. There are ripples, but eventually your life moves on. In the case of someone dying by suicide, it doesn't move. You're in that space. The loss is preeminent, and it never leaves, because there's 2 questions that people who have lost people through suicide ask themselves all the time. Why did it happen, and what could I have done to change it? And the 3 T's is all about the positivity, if there is such a thing, about suicide, and that is turn the tide. We can change it, and that is clear by the people who have given up of their time this evening, the people who are putting together this fantastic swim to put focus on the fact that we do need to change. It won't happen too easily, and certainly the language of how we change is all about the attitude that we take. And so when we've got fantastic young men, sportsmen, and people who are in high-profile positions, fortunately we have people like Padraig Harrington and some of the golfers come out and tell us, we have bad days, we actually kind of like our blue, and we would love if somebody just put their arm around us and told us that it'll be fine. But they have that support. But the person, and especially we're coming across more and more young people who are exposed on social media and social media bullying, and the fact that they're going into their rooms and they're hiding behind a smile, and then we have an amount somewhere in the region of 15,000 people presenting in our A&E for self-harm. 15,000. And we have no answer other than the fact of basically saying, well, we're hoping that we're going to reduce the number of people dying by suicide. Well, we will if we do something about it. And that's why I said having the group of people here today, having that exposure out there, having people talking about suicide, and having the attitudes of people, even the church, which had to change where you couldn't be buried in hallowed ground, and where your government and previous governments basically said, you committed murder, you committed manslaughter, you committed suicide. You didn't commit suicide, you died by suicide, but the attitude has to change. And the big change that we're looking for, and I'm glad that Hildegard is here, is that we have been saying in the 3 Ts for the last number of years that the big opportunity is going to happen when we can convince the politicians that you can make a difference by basically bringing in a piece of legislation that we drafted through the Attorney General's office and modelled on the Road Safety Authority. And the Road Safety Authority effectively took all the various branches that were out there, whether it was road traffic, whether it was learner driving, whether it was vehicles, whether it was roads, and they put it all under one umbrella. They gave them the correct funding and they told them to go off and do their business. And we have, as I said, circumstances where there's people who are in A&E, people who are effectively in, whether it be St. John of God, St. Pat's, and you've got that branch of the actual scenario. You've got drug companies, you've got people who ultimately, if you can put the whole of them together and look at the funding that, for example, the Road Safety Authority gets to save lives, they get 10 times minimum more per person in this country than people who die by suicide. So therefore you've got 3 times the amount of people dying by suicide than died on our roads, and yet we cannot convince the powers that be that there's a way going forward. So change to us will happen when we can convince our lawmakers that suicide is not something that's going to continue to happen, but will and can change. And I think the positivity, and again I believe that when you get a group of people, and I've talked to just a few people around here at the present time. My grandfather was a member of the Commercial Boat Club. My 5 uncles were. I was born over in Fairhill, so I know Galway. And I know the effect that the river can have as an attraction, but also as a deadly pull to somebody who's in a bad place. And so the work that is being done here, and the great thing about this event is, and because you're all here, you can listen to what everybody is saying, but you will never see the person that you've saved or the person who has been saved, because you've got infrared lights or you've got people paroling the river. And that's true charity. And so long as people like the longest swim takes place, and that the sportsmen come out and everybody else, the contributors, continue to support and change the way we think about suicide, we will turn the tide. Thank you for listening.